Let's go to Knoxville, Tennessee, to Central High School. I want you to just picture it. Those Friday night lights, you can hear the roar of the crowd, the marching band playing. This is one of those towns where high school football is pretty much the heart and soul of the community. And right at the center of that whole world, you've got this classic, almost storybook romance. On one side, you have Emma Walker, a really vibrant and passionate cheerleader. And on the other, William Riley Gall, the star wide receiver for the Bobcats.
I mean, they really seem to have it all, right? The perfect couple in this perfect high school setting. So that brings us to the one question that's just impossible to ignore. How on earth did this love story end in murder?
To really get how things went so tragically wrong, we have to start at the beginning. We've got to look at what, from the outside, looked like a completely picture-perfect romance.
So let's go back to the autumn of 2014. Emma Walker was just 14 years old. She was a freshman, and get this, so talented, she was the only one in her year to make the cheerleading squad. Everyone described her as spirited, fun, just a real high achiever who dreamed of becoming a neonatal nurse. And then you had Riley Gall. He was 16, a popular wide receiver, but friends said he wasn't your stereotypical jock. He was polite, well-mannered, kind of a jokester.
And when they got together, they became the couple. You know the one, the football star and the cheerleader. Emma's social media was just filled with these loving photos and silly selfies. To absolutely everyone on the outside, they were the quintessential popular high school couple.
But as we're about to see, that picture-perfect image, it started to crack. Because behind all the public smiles and the happy social media posts, the relationship was starting to take a really, really toxic turn.
You know, the first warning signs started to pile up, and it was Emma's friends who saw them first. Riley's behavior just became more and more controlling. He was possessive, showed this extreme jealousy. He wanted Emma all to himself, which really meant he was trying to isolate her from her friends, from her support system.
And this wasn't just controlling behavior. It escalated into flat-out verbal and emotional abuse. At one point, after a fight, he sent her this absolutely chilling message. "You're dead to me. I'll check the obituary." Can you even imagine getting a text like that from someone who says they love you?
And here's the thing. This is such a textbook example of the cycle of abuse. That terrifying threat was almost immediately followed by this manipulative apology. "I'm sorry for however I act. I love you more than words can describe." It's this constant push and pull, the cruelty, then the apologies and declarations of love that fueled this toxic cycle and made it so hard for Emma to break free.
So for 2 years, the relationship was on again, off again. By the fall of 2016, Emma had finally ended it for good. But Riley just refused to let go. And that brings us to her final weekend, and this series of just terrifying events, including a bizarre and truly frightening staged kidnapping.
When you look at this timeline, you can see how methodical and terrifying the escalation was. On Friday, November 18th, Riley actually fakes his own kidnapping. He's lying in a ditch outside a friend's house just to get him his attention. She sees right through it and tells him to leave her alone. The very next day, a mysterious man in black, who her friends immediately recognize as Riley, is seen stalking her house. Then on Sunday, after being told to leave again, he just bombards her, over 40 calls and texts. And then, in the early hours of Monday morning, November 21st, he came back one last time.
That morning, Emma's mom, Jill, went to wake her up for school, but she found her unresponsive. Her lips were blue, there was no pulse. At first, nobody knew what had happened. But then, the police found this tiny, almost hidden bullet hole in her bedroom wall. And the tragic truth became clear. One bullet had struck Emma right behind her left ear as she slept, killing her instantly. They found a second bullet lodged in her pillow.
With Emma gone, the investigation kicked off immediately. And as the police started talking to her friends and family, one name just kept coming up again and again. This is the part of the story where we see Riley's whole web of lies just completely fall apart.
So here's the crucial thing. The evidence against Riley started pouring in, and a lot of it came from his own friends. They're the ones who told detectives that Riley had stolen his grandfather's gun, supposedly for protection. He'd even asked one of his friends, Noah, how to get fingerprints off a gun. And then, the nail in the coffin. Cell phone data completely blew his alibi out of the water, placing him right near Emma's house around the time of the murder.
And when the police brought him in for questioning, his behavior was just chillingly detached. He wouldn't even say Emma's name. He just kept referring to her as the girl, the one that passed away. There was no emotion,
No grief, just this cold, rehearsed story that was already crumbling.
Okay, so this next part is wild. It's something straight out of a crime drama. Riley's friends, Noah and Alex, were so horrified by what they suspected that they bravely agreed to cooperate with the police. The cops fit them with hidden cameras and microphones. Then, they told Riley they'd help him get rid of the murder weapon. They set up a meeting, and just as Riley pulls out the stolen gun to toss it in a river, police swoop in and make the arrest. It was an incredibly courageous move by his friends that sealed the case.
So, with the murder weapon found and Riley in custody, the case headed to the courtroom. And it was here that the full ugly story of obsession and control would be laid out for everyone to see, leading to a killer's conviction.
In court, it all boiled down to two completely different interpretations of what happened. The defense, they didn't deny he fired the gun. Instead, they argued it was just a clumsy plan that went horribly wrong, that he was only trying to scare her into talking to him again and never ever meant to kill her. But the prosecution, they painted a very different picture. They said this was an intentional act of pure anger and obsession, and they argued that the shot placement, aimed right where her head would be on her pillow, proved he intended to kill.
In the end, the jury sided with the prosecution. They didn't see a clumsy accident. They saw a calculated crime. William Riley Gall was found guilty on all charges: first-degree murder, stalking, theft, the whole list. Now in Tennessee, a first-degree murder conviction means an automatic life sentence. The judge ordered that Riley has to serve a minimum of 51 years in prison before he can even be considered for parole. He'll be in his 70s. And listen to this quote from Riley himself at his sentencing. This is just so revealing. He says, "My intentions that night were never to harm her. I wanted to scare her, so bad that she would have no choice but to talk to me again." He literally admits it. His motive wasn't love, it was coercion. It was all about regaining control, a motive that ultimately cost Emma her life. But you know what? This story doesn't end with him. It ends with her. Emma's family and her community have worked so hard to make sure her memory is one of light and kindness, not tragedy. Her legacy lives on through a scholarship at her high school, a dog park named after her, and even a room in a hospital's neonatal unit, honoring her dream of becoming a nurse. The way Emma's family and friends have responded just shows the incredible strength a community can have, even in the face of an unspeakable loss. And it leaves us with one last really crucial question. How do we honor a life that was cut short, while also making sure we learn from the heartbreaking warning signs of a tragedy so that something like this never, ever happens again?